Hey guys, my name's Nova, this is Film Express, and today we're going to be talking about the new horror comedy, The Menu. The Menu was an original screenplay and an original film that has burst onto the scene lately, and it's won the hearts of critics and fans alike. As soon as I saw the first trailer, I was actually very hyped to see this movie. I'll say this right now, the film looked incredibly impressive. It looks like one of those films that almost falls under the radar every year. It had a star-studded, all-star cast of some of the better talent working in the industry right now. Needless to say, I was very excited and I had to check it out. Luckily, it opened up in the theaters near me and I had a free night last night, so I ended up going to see it at the theaters. I'll say this right now, the film started with a very strong premise, really strong characters, and it's all anchored by these fantastic performances. And I can really see how this screenplay could have done waves, in the markets in Hollywood, because there are so many interesting characters for actors to sink their teeth into, and the setting itself is very unique, and it's almost very simple. It's all set in one place for most of the movie. And for that, any studio would really jump on something like this. Couple all these marketability aspects with a really, strong enough commentary on consumerism. To me, already I'm on board, with something like this. So I was very excited to check this out. I was really drawn into the first, 40 or so minutes. Unfortunately, that same momentum doesn't really hold strong throughout the whole film, but I'm not going to say that this is a bad film by any means. I actually quite enjoyed this movie. It started out as a really strong premise for sure, but it quickly dissolves into something that's mainly just serviceable, which is very fine by all standards. It kind of lacks a bit of that logic and a bit of that strong narrative focus in the second and third act. Almost to a point where, I had me rolling my eyes a couple times, but it never took me out of the film. So kudos to the filmmaker Mark Mylod. Kudos to him for making something very effective, at least for the most part. This is not even in the bottom 50 films I've seen this year. If I had to say anything, it's in the top 20 at this point. I'm gonna start by saying the rating now instead of leaving it for the end. If I had to give it a rating, I'd give it like a 6 or a 6.5 out of 10. And I feel very confident with that rating, and I feel like it's very fair. In terms of some of the positives, the script is probably the highlight. There are some really funny lines and some fantastic comedic moments. Also, a lot of tension in the first 40 minutes. Unfortunately, some of it does get quite heavy-handed, and in order to reach the lengths that it gets to in the third act, it does have to jump through some hoops that I don't particularly agree with. The main positive aspect is the acting. Everybody here came with their A game, and if I have to give out some of my standout performances, Nicholas Hoult, I've been a fan of him ever since he was a child actor, and he's grown into a phenomenal performer now. His performance in this might be the most unique in every sense, because some of the stronger comedic moments in the film actually rested on him. And I really liked his character, and I really liked the development of his character throughout this film. Another person who really impressed me is Hong Chau. She came with her A game on this one in every sense of the word. She ate up every single scene, pun intended. She ate up every scene she was in. I was very impressed with both of these actors, considering the fact that both of them are not usually force-fed to us consistently in Hollywood. We don't get them in heavy doses in every project. We get them here and there, and they really took their chance in this film to shine. Ralph Fiennes as well, he does a really solid job as the villain in this film. What I would say about his character is that he tries his best to bring all of these justifications to life, but I almost feel like the writing for his motivations and for his journey was almost lacking. To me, a good villain should really be believable, but it also should have motivations and justifications that the audience can maybe not relate to, but understand, and you can kind of see why a person gets to this point of wanting to hurt people and do all these bad things. It's almost like he had very little to work with, and he still manages to put on a fantastic performance. He's almost born to play these villain roles, and he's really good at them. But a lot of the reveals and a lot of his reasonings and a lot of the justifications that are revealed in the second and third act, they almost left me, feeling like, is that it? There needed to be more, in my opinion. What's interesting about this film is that if you watch the trailer, your mind starts racing about all the different potential outcomes of where the story is going to go. Are they going to be cannibals? Are they eating people? Are they being hunted to be the next meal? There are so many interesting things that could have happened in this story. Unfortunately, I would say that I've kind of made up stories in my head of how this film would go that were almost more interesting than where this film went after the 40-minute mark. It's really at the 40-minute mark that things start to ramp up and take really dark turns. and I was definitely enjoying my ride, but I had more questions and almost couldn't believe it. Like, I had to suspend some of my disbelief, which, you know what, fair enough. When we watch a movie, we're asked to suspend a bit of our disbelief. But I feel like, attacking things with a bit more realism would sell an audience member like myself, who does do some writing and does really, really take care for strong narratives. The concepts and themes of this film are already strong enough. It would have made this film an instant classic if those themes were explored even better. Of course, it has a lot to say about consumerism, consumer culture. It's obviously trying to criticize the rich who spend, unfavorable amounts of money on getting, their sense of entertainment. It's almost criticizing art and artists in a way for losing sight of their audience members. And there's a few moments in the script where Ralph Fiennes, he prepares a dish for these people where it's not at all what they expected, and it leaves them wanting more. And that in itself is a very, very strong commentary about expectations people have of artists, and how those expectations can almost push an artist to do very, very drastic and intense things. And if you want to see many examples of that, look at Kanye West, look at Childish Gambino, look at Quentin Tarantino, look at Damien Chazelle. Damien Chazelle's new movie Babylon is being met with such a very weird and mixed reaction. And I've read the screenplay a few months ago. At least the screenplay, like, I haven't seen the film, but the screenplay of Babylon, it almost seems like Chazelle is trying to stick it to Hollywood in a very weird way. We all know what happened the night that La La Land almost won, but Moonlight was actually the winner. And I feel like he's holding a bit of resentment, and he's trying to kind of get back at Hollywood for that. So it's a very interesting thing when expectations come into play. It's literally the only hurdle that some artists have to face when putting their art out. Because in all honesty, many artists do this therapeutically. They do this for them. They're not thinking about the audience as often as maybe they should, but that's the best way to create. You're uninhibited. You're not thinking about profitability. You're not thinking about all these things. So when that comes into play, you really see the limitations that can put on an artist, and how that can build up very, very strong resentment. I wish that was explored a bit more in the screenplay and in this film with Ralph Fiennes' character, and it's not to say that it doesn't, but it really brushes on the tip of the iceberg, and I just wish it could have done a little bit better. And that, for me, would have elevated this film to an 8 or a 9 out of 10, in all honesty. For the most part, the production design, the camera work, everything was really solid. There were some really interesting camera choices and camera movements at the beginning, like little weird digital zooms and stuff like that I don't particularly agree with, but they never took me out of the film, and that's just me really being nitpicky. Overall, this film had great laughs, it had an entertaining premise, and it was a strong enough viewing experience that I could say that this is going to be one of the stronger films of the year. Whether you love it or like it or find some problems with it, it's undeniable that it's one of the better offerings of 2022. You guys might have heard that Tarantino has recently said that this film era is one of the worst film eras to ever exist. I'm fully on board with him. I have a list on Letterboxd of all the films that I've rated 1 star or lower in 2022, and it's currently sitting at 47 films, so that is crazy to me. The fact that The Menu doesn't even get close to being put on this list, and it's something that I actually enjoyed, I really just have to applaud it. And you know what, for me, a 6 out of 10 or 6.5 out of 10 is still a very strong rating by today's standards. So I urge everyone to see this movie. Honestly, you're gonna have a good time. Whether you can suspend your disbelief more than me or not, that's up to you. Regardless of all that, I think it's well worth watching. It's great to see it with an audience too, because their laughs will feed into yours. You'll see the different perspectives, like what grosses someone out can make someone else laugh, and I find that really interesting in a crowd setting. I have to say the ending of this film is one of the stronger points. Like I said, I did have problems with the second and third act after the 40-minute mark, but by the time those last 10 minutes hit, I was definitely on board with that journey and what it had to say. So again, that's another real strength to this movie, is that, for me, a good film isn't complete without a good ending. And The Menu really, really delivers on that promise. And another thing is that it never bites off more than it can chew, right? And another food pun there. If you guys have count how many food puns I've done in this video, there might be 3 or 4 by now. Like I said, the film knows what it wants to do. It knows what it wants to say, and it gets there by any means necessary. And whether or not you fully agree with every decision in this film, you have to applaud this film for what it's doing. So guys, that is my review of The Menu. It's a very, very cool film, very interesting, and while it's not flawless, and while it might not be regarded as an instant classic, it's still well worth watching. I need to start being more comfortable with talking about middle of the road films as well. Not everything is a masterpiece and not everything is a piece of garbage, right? So I really want to try to delve more into films that I really just enjoyed, and I'm not going to think about it much more often, and I'm not going to write an essay about it or anything like that, but it was an enjoyable experience. My name's Nova. This is Film Express. Please like and subscribe. It would really help the channel out. I've been loving seeing all these new subscribers and all these new comments coming in on every video, so I really thank you guys for all of that. I have a few more reviews coming out for you this week, so please tune in for that. Again, my name's Nova. I'll catch you guys later. It's been a pleasure. Take care.